This is Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out through communication and emotional intelligence. I'm Diane Dye Hansen, management consultant, and with me co-host Christine Salvo, therapist, advanced certified mediator, and certified hypnotherapist.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. And today I really want to recap on an episode. And if you missed this episode with Eric Beschinski, you need to go back and listen to it because it was incredibly thought-provoking on how to navigate not only your business, but your life. And there were some very thought-provoking questions that were asked during that episode. And I think this episode, it would be great for us to really look at those questions, have you answer those questions for yourself, and Christine and I will play with answering those as well. So what are those questions, Christine?
Well, there was just a couple here, but these ones were pretty profound. So the first one was, what are you the enemy of? So the way I kind of interpret this is like, we're these predator prey animals, right, as humans. So we're predators, but we're also prey in the right environments. So we have this kind of double whammy of, and a lot of the enemies we can perceive are often ideals in our own heads. Somewhat, there are obviously some environmental enemies or things that can harm you. But most often the enemies, what are we the enemy of? So like things like laziness, like if you're a really active person, you're the enemy of laziness. Like you just slay laziness. Laziness has no chance with you. Or if you're, a super productive person or different things like that. So I love this question of what are you the enemy of to start? So what would you say, Diane? How would you answer that?
Boy, so if I was a predator in the jungle, what would be afraid of me eating it?
Mm-hmm.
I think what would be afraid of me eating it is I really think stagnation. Stagnation would be terrified of me eating it. Business as usual, absolutely. It's definitely lunch in my world. I don't do the status quo thing. I shake things up on a consistent basis with myself, my clients, the people in my life. I'm not afraid to have those shaking conversations that will challenge a way of thinking or something like that with someone. So I would say those are mine. How about yours?
Ooh, what's afraid of me? I have some similar ones, I'd say overlapping. I am definitely a big fan of action. So I'm an Aries. I like to say I'm a flaming Aries. Action is king in my world. So I don't think about stuff too long. I don't contemplate. I'll do my homework, I'll lay the foundation, and I'm strategic, so I'm patient, but action is always coming next, right? So knowing my intentions when I'm coming. So inaction, kind of like you said, spinning my wheels, that's really not my thing. I'd rather make a decision and make the wrong one than not make a decision at all. And I think that's a lot of the coaching that I've had and a lot of the seminars I've done, especially from CEOs and top professional business kind of minded people. They always say, CEOs only have 40% of the information when they're making decisions. But the difference between them and the employees is the CEO will still make a decision. And whatever that decision is, committing to it, following it through, and or knowing when to ditch it, right? So for me, I gotta be, action is huge. Fun. I'm the enemy of not fun. I don't like things to be not fun for very long. So if I'm not enjoying my job, if I'm not enjoying my relationship, if I'm not enjoying certain things, it's a dead dog to me. I gotta make some changes there, or I gotta go. Because to me, fun is a fundamental part of my life. I need to be smiling, laughing, having fun, making memories, taking pictures. I want a life worthy of photographs and all of these kinds of reminiscing. I always like to think of someday at the end of my life, I want to look back and be like, damn, come? Like, you did all that, and a lot of it's very messy. It's not even like I did a lot of that well, but I did it. And it's really cool. I've been reading this book, and one of the quotes in it said, "It's not about winning or losing. It's about taking the challenge." This was the book by Matthew McConaughey that just came out called Green Lights, and it's really fantastic in my opinion. So I was really looking at that like, wow, what a mind shift. It's just about the challenge. So the kind of story behind it is he's boxing in this African tribe in this deep culture in Africa continent, and at the end of the fight, he's sweaty and he's bloody, and he goes to the tribal leader and he says, "Did I win?" And that's what the tribal leader said to him. And he was basically like, laughs at him like, "Oh, you dummy. Like, it's not about winning or losing. You won because you showed up for the challenge. It didn't matter what happened next. You already got it. Everything that was supposed to come came." So that would be another one for me. What about for you?
Yeah, I like how you said that fun is fundamental. That is funny because fun is part of the word fundamental, and that baseline. For me, if you think about it, being, it's not business in life, it's just one life. I think on my end, I am the enemy of disconnection. Like I can't be disconnected from just spirit source. I can't go on autopilot for too long without something breaking. Something will break if I'm on autopilot for too incredibly long. So I have to be in that constant state of the seer, of the observer of my own life, and be willing not only to accept feedback on that life, but to be able to self-inquire as well. And I had one of these circumstances actually that self-inquiry really brought to a screeching halt some serious self-sabotage that I was doing to myself. I was staying in Arizona with a friend. I was at the tail end of a very long 45-day road trip, because I like to do those in the winter. And I woke up in the middle of the night, literally in a panic attack, sweating, going, why in the world is it that I have just resisted, not that I can't afford it, but resisted having health insurance? Absolute, total, and complete resistance. And I had to do this exercise on myself. I call the 7 whys. And it's based on the 5 whys, but I do 7 because it really gets you super deep down in there. And by the end of this 7 whys, that I was doing to myself, I realized that my resistance was, if I got health insurance, there would be something wrong with me because I would have manifested by preparing for it. So then I had to sit with that and go, well, wait a second. What happens if there was something wrong with me and I was ignorant of it and I didn't have my back? And then I did the 7 whys again on why is it that I don't have my own back? Like I didn't have my own back, and I was self-sabotaging myself in that way. And by the next morning, I had picked up the phone, I had called my insurance agent, I had gotten health insurance. 2.5 months later, I'm in the emergency room with labor type excruciating pain. So that self-inquiry for me is so essential. It's how I connect with my source. It's how I connect with myself. And it's how I basically call myself on my own pucky. It's how I call myself on the stuff that I am dishing out that just stinks. And it will stink if up my life if I continue it. So I think that's a really good segue into some research that we were talking about prior to the show. Psychology Today did a brilliant article about self-sabotage and the enemy within.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So that next question, while we kind of look into this article, is what is the enemy to me? So the first
Mhm.
one was, what are you the enemy of? What do I slay? How am I the predator? And then this next question is really, what am I a prey to? And I think this self-sabotage article really starts talking about how we can become prey to ourselves. So, the way I just kind of read it straight off the page, it says, are you sabotaging yourself? Some people drink, some procrastinate, others are just way too modest. How do you get in your own way? And so, what is the enemy to me? So, as you said before, kind of head in the sand, kind of pushing away this idea that you need medical attention or help, and how that kind of left you high and dry for a while. But the minute you got that call, you were grateful because it paid off immediately almost, right?
It did. It paid off really fast, and it progressed from that emergency room visit to needing to go to specialists and needing to be fully checked out, which I hadn't in years and years, and then finally resulting in soon to be abdominal surgery that I need. And this is something that could easily be ignored. But then one day I wake up and, I look, 6 or 7 months pregnant. That's kind of the outcome of ignoring what's going on with me specifically. So that's self-sabotage. And I don't even know the depth right now of the length of time that it took to realize this, because I don't know how it's been impacting me, my energy, my mood, my desire to drink water. They said that, when I finish the surgery, that I'm going to be able to drink more water, and I'm probably going to do so more frequently because I'm not going to have to get up and go to the bathroom every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And dehydration wreaks havoc on a body. So it's not just self-sabotage of my action, it's actual self-sabotage of my ability.
So the self-sabotaging, the enemy to me, what stalks me, what keeps me stuck, what keeps me scared, what keeps me not moving forward. Those are ways we can define these external enemies. And a lot of times, like you said, they're not even in the outside world. It's in our head. I'm not worthy
Mhm.
of medical care. I can't afford it. It's too expensive. I'd rather not know. I can't honestly tell you how many times I've heard that in a therapeutic setting. I have all these symptoms, but I'm not going to go to the doctor. I'd rather not know. And I usually respond with, that's fine. Um, but if treatment is available, wouldn't you want it? And if this was a family member or a loved one of yours, would you be okay with them treating the situation the same way? And typically that will move people out of that, I'm not going to do it, to, oh, well, if it was my wife or my child or my, best friend, I'd be vehemently angry that they ignored the problem until it was too late and now I get less time with them, right? So every once in a while we have to kind of look to the external to do the internal, to make those changes. But the number one thing on this article that they talked about is dodging emotions. And I can't emphasize this enough. The help that harms. It says we often get into trouble trying to escape intense negative feelings. Everyone does it sometimes. Some do it regularly, shoot themselves in the foot or put obstacles in their own chosen path. Behavior is self-sabotaging when, in attempting to solve or cope with a problem, it instigates new problems, interferes with long-term goals, and unsettles relationships. Comfort eating is a common form of self-sabotage, especially when a person has weight concerns. Self-medicating with drugs or alcohol is another common form. Although procrastination may be the most common of all, less common is self-injury, cutting to escape painful emotions, or going on shopping sprees when one can't afford the merchandise. So when we're not able to, and we really don't, as a therapist, I can say, this is not necessarily a culture of feeling. And when people do eventually come to the place where they just can't take it anymore and they end up coming to therapy by suggestion of others, or they finally kind of reach a note or they get a referral, there's so much there that it can take a pretty long time to get to the bottom of things and really start to see progress. So one of my favorite things is really kind of trying to help create a culture that's different than this, right? And that's through our children. So helping yourself at this point now, yes, do it. It is worth your time and investment for sure. And once you get a little bit of a handle on this, let's start teaching our kids that, hey, anger is cool. It's fine. Just don't kill people and break stuff, right? Or, so learning that all of our emotions can be productive as long as we are able to manage the destructive part. So a lot of the times people are afraid to feel because they're too afraid of the destruction. They're too afraid of what will happen. Or a lot of times I hear, if I start crying, I'll never stop. And then I challenge someone, well, try to cry for the whole hour. They can't, because the crying does actually stop naturally. Your tear ducts dry up and you get the dump, you get the hormonal dump, and you're actually okay. But it's kind of funny here that all of these, just like you're saying, all of these things, all of these little dramas and these webs and these issues that we spin come from dodging emotions, from just feeling what's present.
They said, although procrastination may be the most common of all. So sticking the head in the sand about, what you've got, going on in your work life. Like I know I need to be doing fill in the blank here, but I just don't feel like it yet. Or I've got all these other things to do that I'm going to choose to prioritize over this very important thing because they're more fun, or they're just I'm scared of this one thing that I'm procrastinating on. Procrastination is actually a big messenger of so much information. It can be a messenger of maybe what's not actually in your wheelhouse that you need to delegate. That's just not within your world of work. It's a really big stretch for you, so you don't do it. It could also be a messenger that your plate really is too full and you need to get super intentional about what you are doing to make your way through your day. Maybe there are some ways that you're wasting time that is filling your plate so much that it just feels too heavy to start at all. So for procrastination, I kind of view it like hiking to a destination, and here in our beautiful area that we live in, we have mountains. So I akin it to a summit of a mountain. That summit of that mountain can be real freaky. So that summit could be, if we're talking about emotions, that could be just a big emotion or a big event. Or it could be procrastinating on a work thing. But whatever your mountaintop is, listeners, I encourage you to just arrive at the trailhead and start walking. And
Yeah.
only look at the first mile. And don't even look at the first mile. In fact, look at one step at a time and celebrate the first mile.
For sure. So the number two on this says procrastination. Oops, where did the day go? So only to add to your points, it says we fool ourselves in the minute by minute choices we make. When it comes to self-sabotage, procrastination is king. Why? Because procrastination is the gap between intention and action. It is in this gap that the self operates. The undermining behavior lies in not closing the gap. We make an intention to act, the time comes, but instead of acting, we get lost in our own deliberation, making excuses to justify an unnecessary and potentially harmful delay. Who makes this decision? We do. The self, in fact, sabotages its own intention.
Yep, absolutely. Every single time that it's that gap between intention and action can be a big gap, and a lot of things can happen in there. Second guessing can happen, comparison, imposter syndrome, all these things can start to kind of swirl and happen to widen that gap between intention and action. So taking action in an intentional and quick way I getting the self out of it by saying, self, sit down. Sit down and we just need to do this. So we're just going to start.
Yes. So the third one on here is extreme modesty. It says the case of the disappearing self. There's a point at which integration is corrosive, and women too often find it. Ingratiation, actually, is the word it says. Self-sabotage can show up in the strangest places. Take the recent neuroscience lecture in New York, which is followed by the customary question and answer period. Eventually, the questioner announced there was time for only 2 more questions, and a female neuroscientist, probably in her late 30s, wound up at the last slot. But instead of asking her question straight away, she fell into what might be best described as a self-effacing dance. Oh my gosh, she said, curling around the microphone stand as if to disappear into it. I'm the last questioner. I feel almost guilty. She declared near guilt again before posing her question. I forgot the question, but the prologue was memorable. It made the audience squirm.
Mm.
Ooh, yeah. So this one is why would I speak up? Why should I ask for the promotion? Why I shouldn't rock the boat or say how I feel or what I need because it might upset others. This is really that disappearing into the wall. This is that I'm not enough, my needs aren't enough, and other people are more important kind of mentality, which just leads to resentment. I mean, the problem it's so self-sabotaging is, number one, you're not speaking up and getting your needs met or your questions answered. Number two, nobody knows you're upset. You just keep falling back, so no one has the ability to help or say their side. And number three, you're resentful of the people for not noticing typically, even though you're the one that stopped showing up. So it's a chase your tail kind of scenario.
Absolutely. And it's also the case of the extreme modesty can start to corrode action and end up in procrastination. So all of these kind of work together as well. I know actually this is one that really pops up and hits me in the face, and it pops up and hits a lot of women in the face, because and I hear this a lot when I talk to people. I hear, well, I want to be modest. I don't want to put myself out there because, that's bragging. And I don't want to celebrate because, that's puffery. And it's really a robbery of self, of potential, to be that extremely modest that one disappears from the world and doesn't feel like they're entitled to, basically pat themselves on the back every once in a while.
Right. And also it limits opportunity.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so the more of a wallflower I am, I hear it all the time where it's like, well, so and so doesn't even deserve the job. And I'm like, well, did you ask for it? No. Well, why are they getting so much attention? Because they're always in everybody's face. And they're like, yeah, that's kind of how it goes. And so I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to sit back, do all this hard work, and hope somebody notices. And that'd be nice if they did, but recognizing that they're all busy too, that they're going to pay attention to the shiny thing that's making the most noise, because that's kind of how we're wired as animals and as beings. We look for the crying baby, not the quiet baby. The quiet baby, just we leave it alone. Actually, we go, it's content, it's fine, walk back slowly. But the crying baby, we tend to. And so we're really wired on these deep, deep levels to pay attention to the things that need attention. And every once in a while, let the thing that needs attention be you. You don't have to do it in an obnoxious way. You don't have to do it in an immature way, and you don't have to do it in a manipulative way. But at the same time, when you've done the work, you want the promotion, be the squeaky wheel, speak up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And and that can even lead into what's number 4 here, which is addiction, the long slide. So when you self-suppress, and it doesn't matter what you're self-suppressing, addiction it just walks hand in hand with resentment and self-suppression.
Yeah, so would you like to read this last one here, number
Yeah.
4?
Yeah, addiction, the long slide. I did all the things I wasn't supposed to do. Self-sabotage is not an act, it's a process, a complex, tragic process that pits people against their own thoughts and impulses. Though we all make mistakes, a true self-saboteur continues to try to fix those mistakes by top-loading them with increasingly bad decisions. Addicts, for example, present a parade of excuses and delusional thinking while avoiding the painful, decisive action necessary to set their lives right. All too often, we hear stories of talented individuals who, despite much potential, allow drugs and alcohol to drag them down. For some, this is fodder for celebrity gossip and tabloid junk. And for that author of that article, it was the story of their life. And this is heavy because it's not just drugs and alcohol. It's shopping, it's relationship addiction, it's food addiction. I mean, anything that you can do to an excess to cover up and really create wreckage, create wreckage in your life and create wreckage in other people's lives is an addiction.
Yeah. So, what is the enemy to me? So after kind of reading this kind of list by Psychology Today, doing some self-evaluation, listening to this show today, I'm hoping that you're able to see that we want to increase the things that we're enemies to, and we want to decrease the things that are enemies to us, right? Because once we can identify it, now we have some potential for change. Now we can put in some safeguards, some bumpers. We can notice. Awareness, I always say, is number one. We don't know until we know, but once we know, we must do. When we're aware and we don't take action, that denial piece isn't real denial. It's always there running in the background. I know very few people that can know that that's happening without the consequence of really feeling that, well, I have this report due, but I'm sitting here watching this movie. You're not really watching the movie with joy. You're watching the movie with anxiety because there's something else you should be doing that needs your attention, you should be tending to. So I would challenge our listeners to start making a list of what you want to be the enemy of. Maybe it is procrastination. Maybe it is addiction. Maybe it is kind of these poor habits that aren't setting you up for a nice life, which is, poor eating, sleeping, as you said, hydrating, maybe evaluating your relationships for, are they nice? Are they fulfilling? Or are they draining and taxing? There's a lot of different ways to go about this journey. But I do highly suggest you increase what you're the enemy to and decrease what's the enemy to you.
Beautiful, beautiful statement through and through. Beautiful exploration that I encourage every single one of our listeners to do. I hope this morning enlightened you and prepares you to go within in a new way.
Yes, thank you so much for listening.
This has been Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out through communication and emotional intelligence. I'm Diana Hansen, management consultant.
And I'm Christine Salvo, licensed marriage and family therapist, advanced certified mediator, and hypnotherapist.
Have a great, great, beautiful, and introspective day.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. This is Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out through communication.